Case Law by Alex Castro. The World Federation of Right to Die Societies explains the difference between euthanasia and physician-assisted suicide. They say that euthanasia is when a physician takes an active role in carrying out the patient's request, while physician-assisted suicide is when they make the lethal means available to the patient to be used at the patient's own choosing. So euthanasia is more of a direct killing because the physician is doing the actual lethal dosage on them, and physician-assisted suicide is they're only giving them the resources available. Before we start talking about Dr. Jack Kevorkian and the cases he was involved in, let me tell you a little bit about a pro-assisted suicide website. The website is called thefinalexitnetwork.org, and it is a website that protects and defends the rights of those who are disabled or terminally ill and want to end their suffering by means of physician or doctor. Their principle is that they do not encourage anyone to end their life. They are opposed to anyone's encouraging another to end his life, do not provide the means to do so, and do not assist in any person's death. Their program only serves those with painful and fatal diseases such as Alzheimer's, ALS, cancer, Huntington's disease, muscular dystrophy, AIDS, and many more. They offer guidance and the most current information known for self-deliverance when the member is ready to choose. Safeguards are in place to ensure that the person's decision is voluntary and repeatedly stated. I suppose if helping a patient die is killing, I suppose I'm a killer. These are the words of Dr. Jack Kevorkian, an American pathologist who created controversy in the 1990s. He was also known as Dr. Death for having aided in at least 130 suicides using two machines that he created himself, the Thanatron and the Mercitron. Although he was charged in many of his killings, he only served time for the murder of Thomas Yoke. He died in 2011 at the age of 83 from contracting hepatitis C in Vietnam while researching blood transfusions. The first case that we're going to look at is Janet Atkins. Atkins was 54 years old, had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, was Kevorkian's first public assisted suicide, and the case went to trial in 1989. Although Kevorkian was charged with murder, the District Court of Oakland County had to drop the charges because Michigan did not have a law against suicide or physician-assisted suicide. The reason why these cases are so sensitive is because of the ethical issues that are involved with them. All three of these cases have issues with physician-assisted suicide and euthanasia. The first question that we must ask ourselves is, did Ms. Atkins give informed consent? Was she terminally ill? And it goes against the principle of respect for autonomy. According to the University of Washington, informed consent is the process by which the treating healthcare provider discloses appropriate information to a competent patient. The patient may make a voluntary choice to accept or refuse treatment. There was nothing in the trial about Ms. Atkins giving informed consent. The Catechism of the Catholic Church states that direct euthanasia in any way is morally unacceptable, and the Vatican states that direct euthanasia is a question of the violation of the divine law. It is an offense against the dignity of a human person, it's a crime against life, and an attack on humanity. The second case that we're going to look at is Thomas Yoke. Thomas Yoke was 30 years old and had Lou Gehrig's disease, or ALS. According to the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke, ALS causes all muscles under voluntary control to be affected. Individuals will lose their strength and ability to move their arms, legs, and body, and will eventually lose the ability to breathe without ventilatory support. This suicide was recorded and seen on CBS's 60 Minutes in 1998. This was the only case where Kevorkian was charged and found guilty of second-degree murder. He could not convince the jury that Yoke's wife and brother were important to the defense, and there was no given testimony on Yoke's condition. Kevorkian was given a sentence of 10 to 25 years in prison, but got off early for good behavior. Up next, we're going to watch a YouTube video on Jack Kevorkian. The ethical issues involved with this case are: was there written consent? What was the purpose of videotaping the murder for the world to see? And Dr. Jack Kevorkian actually inserted the poison into Thomas Yoke himself. According to the Catechism of the Catholic Church, intentional euthanasia, whatever its form, is murder. For us to go against God, our Creator, and kill another human person is morally unacceptable. The Vatican says that no biologist or doctor can reasonably claim, by virtue of his scientific competence, to be able to decide on a person's origin and destiny. Applied science and medicine work together for the integral good of a human life, but we cannot take advantage of it. The third case that we're going to look at is Dr. Ali Khalili. Dr. Khalili was 61 years old. He had bone cancer, walked with a cane, and needed lots of morphine to ease the pain. He died by inhaling carbon monoxide in Kevorkian's presence. Kevorkian was charged with violating the assisted suicide law that was passed earlier in 1993, but the charge was acquitted because the prosecutors couldn't prove that Kevorkian intended solely to cause death and not to relieve pain. This was Kevorkian's 20th suicide charge, and he walked free again. The ethical issues that are involved with this case is that there were no proof in regards to Khalili's desire to end his own life. Did he give informed consent, and was he terminally ill? The Catechism of the Catholic Church states that no human, under any circumstance, has the right to kill another human being. And again restated by the Vatican, no biologist or doctor can reasonably claim, by virtue of his scientific competence, to be the one to decide on a person's origin and destiny. What are the pros and cons of physician-assisted suicide? The pros are: a patient's suffering will end, the healthcare price will be reduced, organs can be used to help others. If we have a right to live, we should have a right to die. And most importantly, patients can die with dignity rather than have the illness reduce them to a shell of their former selves. And the cons are: it goes against the Hippocratic Oath, the doctor's power could be used in unethical ways, suicide in general is very controversial, miracles have occurred on terminally ill patients, and the most important is it demeans the value of human life. For more pros and cons, you can go to balancepolitics.org. Only 4 of the 50 states have legalized assisted suicide: Oregon in 1994, Washington in 2008, Montana in 2009, and Vermont in 2013. Although a few states have attempted to legalize it, all 46 states still consider it illegal. If the crime is committed, most courts will charge for manslaughter or another specific felony. The Death with Dignity Act was passed on October 27, 1997 in Oregon. It allows terminally ill residents of Oregon to legally end their own lives by means of lethal medication prescribed by a physician. The Oregon Health Authority must collect information of each and every patient and physician that participates in the act and publish a yearly statistic report. For more information, please go to the OregonHealthAuthority.org. In order for a patient to participate in the Death with Dignity Act, he or she must be 18 years old, be a resident of Oregon, be capable of making and expressing his or her own decision, and must have been diagnosed with a terminal illness that gives them at least 6 months to live. A physician must be mentally capable and legally licensed by the state in which the participant lives in. A diagnosis must be made by a second physician who is also capable of making decisions, and the participant must have a psychological evaluation if either physician's judgment is impaired. The physician must make known to the patient about the alternatives of physician-assisted suicide, and the physician asks that the patient tell his or her own family about the prescription request. Aside from Oregon, Washington, Montana, and Vermont have their own Death with Dignity Act. Washington created theirs on November 4, 2008. Montana, with the Baxter v. Montana trial, created theirs on December 5, 2008, but it does not have the same legal protocol. And then Vermont legalized theirs on May 20, 2013 by the End of Life Choices Bill, which has the same requirements of the Death with Dignity Act from Oregon. Now let's look at an example of a patient request form from Oregon. Aside from the 4 states in the United States that have legalized either euthanasia or physician-assisted suicide, 5 countries around the world have done the same. Belgium in 2002, Germany in 1751, Luxembourg in 2008, Netherlands in 2001, and Switzerland in early 1942. Two groups that I found that were anti-euthanasia and anti-assisted suicide were TASH and CURE. The goals of TASH are to help disabled people assist a school where everyone will be treated equally, to help employ them with everyday jobs, and to diversify the community so they are not looked at as a disadvantage to society. And then the mission of CURE is to have hospitals worldwide and provide necessary care for children and those who are suffering. They have 29 hospitals all over the world and have helped over 2 million people since their opening in 1998.